How important is it that someone from an ethnic minority...
Thank you so much for joining us today. That's Maria Caulfield, the MP for Lewis.
Past 8 now. Rishi Sunak is the first British Asian person to become Prime Minister. He was born in Southampton to parents of Punjabi Indian descent who migrated to Britain from East Africa in the 1960s. So how important is it that someone from an ethnic minority now holds the most powerful position in UK politics? I speak to Anand Menon, Director of UK in a Changing Europe. Morning, Anand. What does the representation of having Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister mean to you?
Well, for me, it's just fantastically symbolically important to see someone of South Asian descent enter 10 Downing Street later today. It'll be quite moving in the sense that, you always like to think that anyone can do anything if they put their minds to it, but actually seeing someone who looks like you do something like that is a powerful message, I think.
Did you ever think growing up that you would see a person of colour in Downing Street?
No, I mean, I'm old enough to have sort of grown up in West Yorkshire in the 1970s when, casual racism was just the norm, people shouting abuse from over the street, and stuff like that. I remember my dad being sort of blocked from joining a golf club because of his colour explicitly to his face. So, no, back then that just seemed like a bit of a pipe dream, to be honest.
And do you think this will encourage more people from ethnic minorities into politics and the political sphere?
I hope so, yeah. I think these symbols really, really matter. I think when kids look and see people who look like them or look like their parents, it does give them the idea that the sky's the limit. I mean, we shouldn't go over the top here. I mean, some people are saying, look, Rishi Sunak is Prime Minister, so there isn't, we don't have a problem with racism in this country. I think you should avoid either extreme. I mean, for me, and I'm not speaking as a representative of the community as a whole, it is symbolically important, but there's still stuff we need to be doing.
Yeah, because I guess there's a difference, isn't there, between the kind of descriptive representation and substantive representation. Yep. A lot of people have kind of brought this up. I mean, this is quite strongly worded, but I'll read you a text from Gemma, who's in Cardiff. She says, this focus on Sunak's heritage is just too much, and people miss that he supported Tory anti-immigration policies, preventing other families from benefiting from the same privileges that his own family did when they were allowed to move here. In that context, presenting this as a milestone in diversity and inclusion is grotesque.
Well, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head with the distinction between descriptive and substantive representation. I mean, descriptive representation is simply someone from that community. And that's why I limited my remarks to saying symbolically this matters, appearance-wise this matters. Substantive representation is when someone from that community goes out and acts in the benefit of that community. Now, clearly, that might not always be the case, but there are two separate things, and I think it's important to keep them separate in our minds. The visuals matter, but so too do his actions, and ultimately, as Prime Minister, it's going to be by his actions that we judge him.
Yeah, do you think that Rishi Sunak will try and advance the lives of minorities in the United Kingdom?
I have no idea, to be honest. One of the amazing things about this leadership campaign is we've come out of it having no clue how he's going to govern, because there's been no public discussion of policies. We don't even know what his plans are for the economy, let alone anything else. So it's very, very hard to tell. I wouldn't want to prejudge a prime minister who's just come into office, but what I would say is there's no necessary reason why being from an ethnic minority background is going to make you a liberal politician when it comes to matters of race. I don't think the two go together.
And in terms of issues facing the country at large, what do you think is his most pressing problem? Because there's a list, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I'd identify two, and the one is a means to the other. The big problem is the economy. It's dealing with the cost of living crisis. It's keeping inflation under control. It's trying to deal with those soaring mortgage costs. But the related problem that he has to solve in order to deal with that is that he has become the leader of a party that is very divided. I mean, you've just heard a Conservative MP talking the talk about unity, but what we do know is when it comes to the basics of economic policy, the Tories disagree, and everything is going to hinge on his ability to hold that party together and their desire to remain loyal in the face of opinion polls that put them in a frankly shocking position at the moment.
From what you've seen of Rishi Sunak, do you think he will be able to hold the party together? Do you think he's got the leadership credentials to do that?
It's very, very hard to tell. I mean, it's very hard to predict how good a prime minister someone is going to be because it's a totally different skill set, isn't it? You're no longer running a department. And there's every indication that as Chancellor, he, worked very, very hard, worked very closely with Treasury officials, sort of understood the brief. But being Prime Minister requires you to take a step back and coordinate the whole of government. And it depends on your ability to appoint a good team in number 10, because we've seen several times in the recent past chaos administratively in number 10, and your ability to oversee a team of ministers. It also, crucially, and this is what we don't know yet, depends on Conservative MPs meaning what they say. They're all talking about unity at the moment. Let's see what happens when the first concrete choice arrives and they don't particularly agree with what the Prime Minister is proposing. Whether that loyalty holds or not is going to be crucial.
Good to speak to you, as always. Thanks very much, Anand.
Cheers. Take care.
That's Anand Menon, Director of UK in a Changing Europe. It's